Mayday, 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 Transat 236 is through 361. Declaring an emergency, declaring an emergency.
August 24th, 2001. Somewhere in the middle of Atlantic Ocean, high up in the skies at around 39,000 feet, Air Transat 236 had just become a 200-ton glider over the ocean in the middle of the night. Moments earlier, their second and last engine had just flamed out. Their situation is getting worse by each passing second. In the middle of the Atlantic, in total darkness, they need to land as soon as possible. On the night of August 23, 2001, passengers were boarding Air Transat from Gate C32. At Toronto International Airport, everyone was unaware that their routine overnight journey would become one of aviation's most remarkable survival stories. Tonight, the Airbus A330 was scheduled to cross the Atlantic to Lisbon, a familiar long-haul route for both airline and crew. At the controls sat Captain Jean Marc, a veteran pilot with over 13,000 total flying hours and significant experience on the A330. Alongside is the first officer Dirk, who had accumulated more than 4,800 flight hours. Both were experienced professionals who had flown this aircraft type across oceans many times before. The jet itself had completed previous transatlantic rotations without incident. There was nothing unusual about this night, nothing in the aircraft's recent history or the crew's logbooks to suggest that this particular departure would test every skill they had built over thousands of hours in the sky. The A330 accelerated down at the runway number 24L, its twin engines roaring with steady power as the heavy Airbus lifted from the land. The nose lifted smoothly into the night sky, and within seconds the wheels left the ground, retracting into the fuselage as Toronto's city lights began to shrink below. The aircraft climbed through layers of cool night air, banking eastward toward the vast darkness of the Atlantic. Inside the cabin, the mood was calm and routine. Passengers started to settle for the long transoceanic flight. Up front, the cockpit instruments glowed in soft amber and green, each indication exactly where it needed to be. The climb continued efficiently to 39,000 feet, where the aircraft leveled off into cruise. Outside, there was nothing but stars above and an endless black ocean below. Hours passed uneventfully as the Airbus pressed deeper into the Atlantic crossing. But just before the moment everything would change, barely 5 minutes before the first serious indication would confront the pilots, there were no warnings of alarms, only the quiet illusion of normalcy at 35,000 feet as the aircraft continued its transoceanic route. Till now, the crew was unaware that the silent fuel leak had already begun to set the stage for one of aviation's most extraordinary emergencies. While cruising over the Atlantic, the cockpit displays on Air Transat Flight 236 show the first unusual indication, a fuel imbalance between the aircraft's wing tanks. According to standard airline operating procedures, this situation is usually managed through a routine checklist. The pilot monitoring begins reading the Airbus fuel imbalance procedure from the electronic checklist, while the pilot flying keeps the aircraft stable on autopilot. The checklist directs the crew to open the cross-feed valve and transfer fuel from one tank to the other to rebalance the aircraft. Believing the imbalance to be a normal fuel distribution issue, the pilots follow the procedure exactly as they were trained for. But unknown to them, fuel is not simply shifting between tanks. It is leaking outside the aircraft. Opening the cross-feed system actually feeds the leak from both tanks. If videos like this fascinate you, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We dive deep into in-depth aviation stories. At around 5:36 Universal Time Coordinated, the pilots begin noticing something that doesn't make sense. The fuel quantity is dropping faster than expected compared to the aircraft's planned fuel burn. Standard cockpit practice now involves cross-checking parameters like the fuel used versus fuel remaining. These checks are part of normal long-haul monitoring procedures. To the pilots, these numbers suggest something abnormal, but the exact cause is still unclear. Suddenly, the right engine flames out. Warning messages appears all across the electronic display. The pilot's flying tries to maintain control of the aircraft and trims for asymmetric thrust, while the other pilot monitoring confirms the failed engine. As per the procedure, the crew attempts a restart. At the same time, the aircraft begins descending to a lower altitude, as a single engine cannot efficiently maintain cruise at 39,000 feet. Realizing they cannot continue to Lisbon, the crew diverts toward the nearest suitable runway, which at that time was Lajes Air Base in the Azores. Air traffic control is informed of the emergency, and the aircraft begins a controlled descent. Inside the cockpit, workload has increased rapidly. One pilot is focusing entirely on flying the aircraft while the other pilot manages checklists and system troubleshooting. Soon after this, the situation becomes even more critical. The left engine that was the aircraft's final operating engine also flames out after running out of fuel. In an instant, the Airbus A330 loses all engine thrust. The cockpit suddenly becomes eerily quiet as the aircraft transitions from a power jet into a glider. Immediately, the aircraft's RAT deploys automatically. This small emergency propeller drops from the fuselage and spins in the airflow, providing limited hydraulic and electrical power. According to Airbus emergency procedures, the pilots now shift into dual engine failure procedures. The priority becomes maintaining the aircraft's best glide speed to maximize the distance they can travel without power. At around 6:14 Universal Time Coordinated, a Mayday call is transmitted. The pilots inform controllers that both engines have been lost, and the aircraft is gliding toward the Azores. Standard gliding procedures involve maintaining the aircraft's optimal glide speed, roughly around 210 knots for the A330, which provides the maximum range from the remaining altitude. The crew calculates whether the aircraft's current altitude and glide ratio will allow them to reach the runway. Every 1,000 feet of altitude now becomes critical. The aircraft continues descending silently through the night sky. Without engine power, many normal systems are unavailable, but the RAT provides enough hydraulic pressure to keep essential flight controls operational. The pilots carefully manage energy and ensure that they can stretch the glide as far as possible. For straight 19 minutes, the Airbus glided over the ocean. Soon after, the pilots were able to see the outlines of Azores Islands finally appeared ahead. The crew confirms that reaching the runway is possible, but the approach will be challenging. With minimal hydraulic power and limited systems, the aircraft cannot perform a normal stabilized approach. As they approach Lajes Air Base, the pilots prepare the aircraft for landing using emergency procedures. The landing gear must be deployed using gravity drop because hydraulic pressure is limited. Flap deployment is also restricted, meaning the aircraft will approach the runway at a significantly higher speed than normal. After gliding nearly 75 nautical miles without engine power, the Airbus A330 finally reaches the runway. The aircraft touches down with a hard landing. Several tires burst instantly due to the high landing speed, and sparks trail behind the aircraft as it decelerates along the runway. Moments later, the aircraft rolls to a complete stop. Inside the cabin, silence fills the air for a brief moment before relief spreads through the passengers and crew. Against extraordinary odds, every one of the 306 people aboard has survived. What began as a routine overnight transatlantic flight had turned into one of the longest powerless glides ever performed by a commercial airliner. With calm judgment and incredible skill, the pilots managed to glide the aircraft 75 nautical miles, safely protecting hundreds of lives on board. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you on the next flight.